Good. Okay. Yeah, I've got that recording now. Yeah, it strikes me that we might look at how, Jackie, with that culture of inquiry and that living theory culture of inquiry, that there is something which, as I was saying, I do think there is a gender bias in the way in which the your four women in the presentation, you bring qualities of relationship to the fore in terms of what you've always stressed, Jackie, about dialogical ways of being. And it just feels to me that as we're preparing for the presentation, we could look very carefully at those qualities that have emerged, because you have talked about the values of love, about vulnerability, and there was another one that was there, as well as the cultures of inquiry. And also with Parbati, you know, that notion of the sattvic culture in relation to goodness. So we could actually talk about how we're presenting using this new platform that allows that, Jackie, to be, if you know, when I talk about a leitmotif, I'm meaning the central principle of communication between us all, and how that has been really important in our planning and presentation. And it just feels to me that, as I say, there is this genuine gender, when I say bias, it's not a negative thing. I just think that you've got qualities which are now coming to the fore increasingly throughout the world and are more peaceful. They're much actually more loving. That sense of the vulnerability comes in. Am I making sense here, that we could highlight in relation to the whole of AERA, you know, that, yeah.
No,
you know,
that works for me.
yeah.
I just want to say that Michelle's not here because we changed our clocks ahead today, and she forgot that, which meant that she had another meeting at 10 o'clock, and she was supposed to be meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. But she wants to know what we talk about, so we'll send her the video.
Yeah.
And she thinks she's going to have the baby this week. So
it's amazing, isn't it? Really, gosh. God, very good.
yeah, no, that works. I'm just kind of thinking, what will that look like? You know, so that's kind of the challenge now, isn't it?
I think it is, yes, because Parbati, we're coming from, I think the cultural, if you like, emphasis on, say, the goodness, which is real, it's relational. It's about what people do as they live in relationship with others. And it feels to me that, like, you know, with Shivani and Michelle about to give birth this week, you know, I mean, we tend to ignore these things in one way, you know, we know they're very important, and yet we don't bring these qualities into our academic research. So if I just mention this, Parbati, that there is a person who's the executive director of AERA. She's called Felice Levine, and she gave the presentations this last week for the use of this new platform. Now, I've had problems with Felice. I've written to her several times about her view that she wants to replace the educational by education. Now, when she was talking, and she talked at the audience for almost 1.5 hours, and we had 2 1.5-hour sessions where Felice talked at people. Now, the chat was full of questions. Okay, so you had a chat facility which were completely almost ignored. So I asked if AERA would conduct an evaluation of the educational influence of the presentation in relation to the questions that people were asking, because they weren't addressed at all. Yeah, so there's something there, Jackie, about the quality of the relationship that we've been establishing together, which has genuinely, I think, been inclusive. You know, we have paid attention to each other's papers. We've had a quality of relationship that I think you four women have stressed the values of being loved into learning and the care and the vulnerability. You know, which I am more than willing to acknowledge are really vital, even though I feel, and I can say this, you know, as a man, I have not highlighted traditionally those values. And yet I'm saying, look, I think the way you've been highlighting these and living them in the relationships as we've been planning this are really important. And I think, Jackie, you could, you know, as we plan this further for our presentation, you know, we could make these points.
Maybe that's our task for this week.
Yeah.
Parbati, how can you explain this whole notion of sattva, of goodness, of how that's part of how you live your life, and it's part of your living educational theory culture of inquiry. And that's something new to me in terms of including that in what it means to be in a culture of inquiry. And I think my understanding is still in its very initial stages. So it will help me to better understand it if you can think of ways to convey it.
I will work on it.
Okay.
I'll work on it and I'll try to connect it as a whole. I haven't thought from that perspective. I will look into that.
That would be great. Are we okay then for today? Because I'll immediately get this, the video clip of where we were just talking about our planning. But Jackie, would you just drop a note to everybody just to say what we're hoping people will focus on? And I'll try and do what I've said I'll do. But it's, for me, exciting to look forward to this very different, you know, form of presentation. Okay.
Okay. So are we continuing to meet on Mondays? And
that would be good for me, but are you all right, Parbati, for next Monday?
Yeah, I'm fine. Will you please send me the question so that I will be working on that?
Okay.
All right. Jack, can you just stay on for a minute?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I was going to suggest that. But I was great. If I stop now, wait a minute, Jackie, let me phone you, let me do you on Skype because
okay.
It will record, oh, unless I stop, hang on, let me just stop, hang on.